I hope everyone can hear us well. Thank you so much, Mark. Such a forward thinker and caring individual for inviting us to the genesis of this documentary weekend. I'm sure and bound that this is going to grow and evolve. I am more excited than ever to connect with like-minded individuals on this incredible medium that I observe has such a opportunity to impact our world. Pardon me a second, Chris, if you could unmute for a second, that would be awesome.
The jazz in the background.
There we go. Fantastic. So sorry about that, everyone. So in the process most recently, right now I'm in LA we're working on the last 5 weeks of our documentary film, 13 Million Voices. It's been a 5-year journey and it's really incredible. I'm in the same apartment where we first started the genesis of the idea. And I have to say that all of the post-production people that I've connected with in the documentary sphere have proven to be such unique individuals with a curiosity of our world that I understand more and more is so important to shaping the evolution of our society, of our world. And each person that's participating here today shares that. And so I feel really excited to participate in that. As you know, Chris and I are the documentarians behind 13 Million Voices, the story behind the largest peace concert in world history with 1.3 million people in attendance. But deeper, it's a story about Cuban youth and the issues they're facing, and Cuban American youth working to bypass these 50 years of deadlock to create a hopeful future and to remove the facade that is Cuba so that we can really look at this social experiment and see what lessons we should be applying and avoiding in our society today. This big project is so wild to be speaking and sharing with you now, because not so long ago when we were back in this apartment, I felt very much like just another girl with a camera, like perhaps you are today. Prior to all this concert, we were just individuals that were deeply curious about our culture and our heritage. Our grandfather had this incredible history of being a political prisoner that had been blind and crippled through unjust imprisonment, had gone to this country as a single father and immigrant and raised children on his own. No one knows for the first 8 years of their life how they were able to survive and thrive. But many years ago, almost 10 years to this point, Chris and I were just students trying to make our way. And I was a dancer. I was finishing my university studies when, perhaps like you, I felt a call to make films. I couldn't explain it. I just needed to make films. And the beauty of that journey is that when we went and I finally studied in New York Film Academy, it offered me tools, but it truly wasn't until we had an opportunity to travel to Cuba that we really began to learn the power of our phones, the power of a camera. When we began to travel through this island and discover a generation completely isolated from the world simply because of a lack of technology, of information, communication, cell phones. And when we came across individuals that had been unjustly imprisoned for something as wild as pre-dangerousness, almost like Minority Report, the ability that you're believed to commit a crime in the future and not have any way to be able to protect that person because there is no images or videos to be able to show the world who this person is and what they're going through. I personally became very impassioned with recording people because it felt like a means of protecting them and being able to document who they were. As one blind activist once told me that he was invisible to the world, unjustly imprisoned, and it was a picture that saved his life. Another young man in the poor countryside, we were walking around and he looked up at the dark sky and he said, "I feel invisible." And that struck me in a really deep way. And it struck my brother and our friends alike in showing us what incredible thing these tools are and how a simple 1 minute, 2 minute recording, even a picture, can truly make a difference. Through these pictures and videos and documenting what I was observing in Cuba, Chris and I went on a journey to share this with communities around the world. But the challenge of it all is impact. How far, what we could do with this footage, where could we reach? So amongst our crazy ideas was a concert with a non-Cuban that could bring their spotlight to this corner of the globe. So lo and behold, 5 years later, when Juanes, this major international celebrity, contacted our organization to help make this concert real, it was evident that we had to record, that we had to make it happen. But it was back in this apartment that we got that call. And for 1 month, I worked to raise funds, to put together a team, to make this professional production happen. And just days before the production, the funds were pulled, the crew could not get visas. And so once again, all I had was myself, a seat on a plane, and access to flip cameras and one HD camera. So once again, just like those days that we were traveling through the island and just recording what we saw in front of us, it was just a decision. It was either we run or we face what it is that we're observing, recorded, and find a way to share it with the world. Throughout the journey of recording this while we were in Cuba, in this concert, cameras were pulled from me, media frenzy pulling at me, security agents threatening us, questioning us. But all it took was one camera. All it took was the courage to record what was before us. And these very dramatic moments were captured. But truly what to us is so important is the hope that we've been able to portray, an authentic story that came to us and that we have been witness to. And to be able to share that. Even beyond this, the recording of this film, there has been a lot of negative efforts to try to stop this film from coming out. But as our friends in Cuba taught us, the truth sets you free. And when we think about ideas of freedom, there's something that I've learned through Cuba is that freedom is not just a physical condition. It's a psychological one. It's an emotional one. And they have taught us that we have to really utilize the tools around us to be able to maximize the opportunities before us. And that ultimately, if we're just curious about the world and share the things that we are experiencing, we're helping others and we're helping ourselves in the process. So anyways, that was my experience in Cuba. I can't express enough how powerful I found these simple tools to be and what it means. But I wanted, Chris, please, I would love for you to share some of your experience. Chris has been a producer in the film.
Hey, everybody. So hopefully the fun tunes we have won't be too distracting. Janelle, thanks so much for a wonderful introduction to the project, the meaning behind it. I think the only point that I wanted to share, and I think we'd love to take a few questions if, I don't know if time permits for Janelle, but I'm definitely available for questions. Perhaps like many of the people in the room, my sister and I, it'd be hard for us to consider ourselves filmmakers, or at the very least documentarians. I still struggle with that idea, because for me, I consider myself an entrepreneur. I consider myself an activist, really somebody who cares about the world and cares to share the reality of what I see and what I observe. And this film has been an opportunity to do that. Like Janelle said, there's nothing fancy about how this came about, or what our training was, or kind of a roadmap for how to do this. It's really been figuring it out as we go, leveraging the resources that surround us, but constantly being driven by what is our purpose, our why. Our why is our counterparts in Cuba. Our why is the story of hope and of empowerment and of potential and possibility, and one that somebody's got to tell. And that's really allowed us to move forward. I mean, like Janelle said, this happened 5 years ago. We bootstrapped the project. We did have an Indiegogo campaign, a crowdfunding campaign, and we raised some money on it. Not the full amount that we needed or had hoped for, but but we were able to rally people, an early audience around the film. And I think the lesson there is there's no need, like there's no like formal stamp like, hey, you're a documentarian, or hey, you're a filmmaker. It is what we make of it. It is what we choose to do and put out in the world. So that's my 2 cents. Would love to kind of interact and make it more interactive with the group that's there in the room.
Maybe you guys want to ask questions, or you can type it in.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
I actually heard Mark pretty well there.
Oh, you did? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Wow,
I don't know what
that
was
was weird.
Yeah, that was weird. Okay, well, does anyone have any questions in the room?
Are they in the project right now? They have the Well, see, I know all about it.
Can you hear that question, Chris?
I heard like the first half of it.
Where are you guys in the project right now in the post-production?
Yeah. So this the project has evolved tremendously over the last 5 years. I think when we did the Indiegogo campaign, that was in the fall of last year. Our hope had been that we'd raise enough money to be able to focus exclusively on the film, finish post-production, and begin a tour of the film. As I mentioned, we didn't raise as much as we had hoped. So Janelle had to take a job. Janelle worked as a producer on a TV show, The Voice, the Spanish version of The Voice that was successful. I was doing my own pursuits. Right now, for the past 2 months, we've been able to kind of dig back into it. And Janelle is now in LA, basically managing the final round of post-production. So she's working with an editing team down in LA, and if all goes according to plan, we should have a final product by the end of October.
What are you guys going to do for distribution, Chris and Jared?
So this has been something that our thoughts have really evolved on it over time, and I wouldn't say that we've kind of finalized what our plan is. One of the experts that we kind of encountered in this whole journey has been a gentleman named Peter Broderick, and he basically encouraged us to think about to basically embrace modern technology and to think about distribution in a segmented way. Essentially, there's many different distribution channels. There's video on demand, it's your Netflix. There's educational, so like universities have access to it. There's direct sales, which is selling your DVD, and a number of other options. And so his advice to us was basically treat each of those separately. Don't try to just package it all together because you end up losing control over what you're doing with the film. And so what we're actually playing with now and giving some serious consideration to is giving the film away for free. We're putting it online in kind of a mixed format where we'll make it available online for a period of time for free. But really, we're just trying to be creative. Our first priority is to have the film be screened or to be viewed really in Cuba. We don't anticipate that it's going to be welcomed with open arms or screened in a theater there, but we're confident that we can bring it to the people and have them share it, and literally share it on thumb drives, which is one of the most popular way that people kind of share information. Essentially like a black market. It's kind of when we think of viral in a place like Cuba, it's really hand to hand and word of mouth. So we really want to leverage that in that case. And then in terms of the U.S. and internationally, we have some solid leads with some distribution opportunities with TV and with universities. So that's where we're starting, and we're going to kind of take it from there as things present themselves.
I think the one thing I would add is that when we're analyzing all these different possibilities, we've been analyzing how to have the greatest impact, because while making money sounds like a wonderful reward, our biggest goal is to reach people. And so we're exploring every creative idea and means to make that happen. And so we're kind of between the traditional models, independent film models, and then the really socially driven campaign models, and hope to strike a balance in between them.
One of the things we'd like to do in a few cities is to basically do community screenings, kind of like blow up screens, something outdoors that we can really rally people around. We have a strong interest in taking this to universities. Through our nonprofit, we have a strong history of leveraging kind of our contacts throughout universities throughout the country. So that's another strong possibility as well.
Hey guys, is there kind of like a social call to action at the end of the documentary if these are screened at house parties and or that kind of thing?
Janelle, do you want to touch on that?
Sure. So in the current cut of the film, we actually have a very direct call to action. In the film genre, in the documentary genre, I have learned more and more from my peers, winners, for instance, of South by Southwest and other places, that perhaps it may be best to have the call to action be a little bit lighter in the film. But we definitely, the film is a jump off point and not an ending. It's really just a point to inspire people to think and feel differently about this island and be curious and ask more questions. So we have every intention of driving people towards more information. Really, the biggest thing is to drive them towards leaders, Cuban youth leaders that are expressing themselves in remarkable ways and making that information accessible to people. And actually right now, wow, we have to update the website, but at the film website, www.13.co, there's actually a Cuba section where you can have access right now to an assortment of remarkable Cuban bloggers that are doing incredible work and that are translated to English and accessible to American audiences.
What is your call to action that people are wanting you to soften up?
I'm sorry, did you say soften up?
Yeah, or lighten up.
I think in general, the call to action is to learn more about Cuba. I think this is a general thing, but very specifically, the film is speaking to the generation in Cuba today. Oftentimes, this island is stuck in a 50-year-old plus argument. There's a lot of political noise, and what we discovered was that the political noise was overshadowing an entire population, an entire generation. And this generation has remarkable talents, remarkable promise, and is doing incredible things with their limited means, but the world is not aware of it. And they live in a very repressive society. And so I think it benefits the world to learn about this country in a much deeper and richer way, so that when we're looking at today, foreign dictators or national threats to our personal privacy and security, that we can learn from this model, this social experiment in a real way, and really be able to analyze what has happened in this island and how it applies to us personally and this population of the world that is largely unknown.
Awesome. Well, any last questions?